All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, it's been nearly 180 days since Russia invaded Ukraine, 6 full months of war, the likes of which we have not seen on the European continent since World War II. In the early days of the war, certain things were not allowed to be debated in the public square in the West, such as, is it a good idea to pull the ripcord on the global petroleum market for the Russian invasion of Ukraine? How long should the West pay high gas prices? Will our sanctions have the intended effect? What is our end goal? Is it in Ukraine? Is it total Ukrainian military victory? Is it a stalemate? If so, what kind? What is our diplomatic end goal? Militarily, what does that even look like? In terms of the weapons that we're shipping them month after month, are we sure they're being used as intended? Are we sure they will stay in the right hands if they even make it to them at all? Do we have a plan in place to ensure stability, not just temporary military victory? Now, of course, we asked all those questions on this show, and of course, not one of them was ever entertained by the U.S. Congress. In general, the media and the political establishment smeared you as a Putin apologist if you asked even one of those questions, not that I particularly care. Now, at its core, the case for defending Ukraine by the West was simple, all those questions aside. We must stand up to Putin in Ukraine so he and other autocratic countries do not feel emboldened to go further and threaten our NATO allies who either share a border with Russia or are nearby. Okay. Now, much was made of the transatlantic alliance, not only between the US and the UK, but France, Germany, and the rest of the continent. The pledge was made by this so-called United West for everyone to step up and take action. There is just one problem. Just like at the core of the NATO alliance, there has been a rot for decades. The same problem has now reared its head with respect to the Ukrainian conflict. July, for example, was a rough month for Ukraine and for the West policy. July saw record profits by Russia from oil. Ukraine definitively lost a major military campaign in the east, and it was regrouping for an offensive to retake territory. The U.S. recognized this by passing and sending billions of dollars of military aid to Ukraine. Now, you would think then, well, the rest of the European countries, since we're all united, we're all in this together, are stepping up too. That's actually completely wrong. In fact, new data tells us that not only did they not even send any of the piddly support they had previously, but that Europe's 6 greatest powers and largest economies did not send €1 of bilateral military aid in the entire month of July. Those powers include the UK, France, Germany, Spain, and Italy, and Poland, all of which have far more to lose from any general war in Europe than we do, and who literally are both closer to Russia, but have fought wars with them for hundreds of years prior. And as shocking as a zero figure is, it's even more shocking when you look at things in terms of absolute aid. In terms of overall aid, the United States to date has provided Ukraine with 25 billion euros of military aid so far. No other country even comes close to 1/5 of that. Yes, you heard me correctly. The only ones who even though approach the 1/5 figure is the United Kingdom, which has sent 4 billion euros of aid. After that, there are so-called EU institutions, which barely count since they're supposed to represent like 29 different countries, and Poland, and they have provided 1.8 billion. Germany, the 4th largest economy on Earth, a so-called great ally of the US, which has the biggest GDP on the continent, has sent 1.2 billion. France, the 7th largest economy, the 2nd largest European power, has sent 0.23 billion. Italy has sent 0.15, which means to date, the United States has provided more military aid to Ukraine than all of the European continent combined. So I compose a very simple question. If this is a war against Putin aggression, why should the United States care more about peace in Europe and the greatest powers on the European continent? Unless the so-called European powers know that they don't actually have to do anything, they continue to subsidize their vast welfare states, and that we will continue to foot the bill because of our politicians, media, and establishment class are far dumber than theirs are. What made things especially comical is as I was writing this monologue, an announcement came across the wire. The Department of Defense has announced we will provide an additional $775 million in military aid to Ukraine to mark the 6-month anniversary of the war. Those include HIMARS rocket systems, artillery, ammunition, drones, and mine-resistant troop vehicles. This $775 million in aid outstrips entire European nations on the continent in dollar terms, and just another routine resupply by the United States. The simple fact is, the U.S. is getting ripped off to a historic degree by the people who are supposedly such great allies. They talk a big game, they appear at the conferences, they say it's all about them and about us, but when the bill comes due, we are the only people paying it. And here's the thing, our payment may cost us big time in the future. A Pentagon official recently revealed shocking information before Congress, which nobody in the press thought to warn the American people about. The United States supply of Javelin anti-tank missiles is currently at a full, reduced one-third capacity because of the support for Ukraine, and will take years to replace that stock. Our supply of Stinger missiles is also reduced by 1/4. The Stinger missiles in particular are a problem because they literally are not in production anymore. Raytheon CEO says that if you want them back, our production line, it will take almost 18 months to even begin. Furthermore, while everyone is worried about Ukraine, we also have interest in Asia, where Stinger missile deliveries for Taiwan that were scheduled had to be pushed back because of Ukraine. Now tell me, what if China invades Taiwan tomorrow? Do you want to be in a position where we have to choose between sending them nothing and then keeping our defense readiness intact? Those are all questions the people in power do not want you to have answers to, because if you did, you would be outraged. The extent to which the U.S. is underwriting so-called peace in Europe is nowhere even close to the balance of fairness, even when you factor in our superpower status. Worse, this actually feeds the notion that this purely is a proxy war between the two great powers and undercuts any great so-called Western alliance. Furthermore, it actually indicates how much Ukraine needs solely the United States. If they need us so badly, well, maybe then we should have more say in the conflict and guide and pressure the government to a solution which is best for us. I say this by acknowledging the Ukrainian cause is just, but there are a lot of just causes on planet Earth. The question of geopolitics is simple. What's best for us? I posit it is insane to underwrite a conflict like this for years to come with an effective blank check while letting other European powers mooch off of us for their physical security and to then take a back seat in how the actual conflict itself goes. The further along this path that we stray, the more likely it becomes that the U.S. expends billions of dollars in a conflict where our actual interests do not lie, that in the long run will only make us less safe, less secure, should a real conflict arise. We did this twice in the last 22 years. You would really think that we would learn our lesson, but we don't. We continue to let vague delusions about democracy and alliances cloud our judgment, only to eventually be smacked in the face with reality. Sadly, I think that day will come, and at least historians will know that there were some sane people who were speaking out about it at the time. I mean, everyone says the United West, united, we're united together, we're fighting together.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.